What's good, boxing heads and fight fans around the world? Be Marsh with another boxing video. So they've announced the 2018 candidates for the Hall of Fame, and the modern day boxers they're gonna put in there are the three modern day boxers will be Eric El Terrible Morales, Winky Wright, and Dr. Iron Fist, Vitali Klitschko. You know what I mean? And these three fighters, Hall of Famers for sure, man. First ballot Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Other guys that were on the ballot that didn't make it were Ricky Hatton from England, Jose Calderon, little Puerto Rican, fighting at 108. He was at 108, and the Thai dude, Pongelsak Wangosam. Pongelsak Wangosam, a guy who had numerous title defenses of his WBC flyweight title. You know what I mean? One of the greatest flyweights of all time, matter of fact. So you know what I mean. This is a good class right here. You know what I mean. Only three guys could make it, and I'd put Eric Morales, Winky Wright, Ricky Hatton. I'm sorry, Vitali Klitschko. I guess he could get in there too. You know what I mean. But all three guys are deservedly so. You know what I mean. But I'm happy that Eric Morales is getting in. You know, the first four-time champion out of Mexico. You know what I mean. And there've been numerous fighters out of Mexico, great fighters, and he's the first four different weight division champion. Super bantamweight when he beat Eric Zaragoza. That was the first time I seen him fight. Matter of fact, I remember when he put down Zaragoza with that body shot straight to the sternum. Boop, puts the older head on the canvas. And he became a champion, you know what I mean? And he was also a champ at 126. I think he was a unified champ at 130, you know what I mean? And, and he was also a champion at super lightweight, you know what I'm saying, at 140, you know what I mean? Junior welterweight, this guy had numerous fights. His resume is stellar, man. Injan Chi, Marco Antonio Barrera 3 times. And I thought, at least the third one, I thought Eric Morales beat Marco Antonio Barrera, Antonio Marco, he beat fellas like Kevin Kelly, even Junior Jones, you know what I mean? He beat Junior Jones in better convincing fashion than Marco Antonio Barrera. Antonio Barrera ain't beat Junior Jones, but he struggled with him, while this guy made easy work of him, you know what I mean? Them classic trilogy fights he had with Manny Pacquiao. I remember when he beat Pacquiao in the first fight, outboxed him, but then the second 2 fights was all Pacquiao. The man Pacquiao made Morales quit in the third fight. He shook his head and said, "No mas, man, I don't want no more," when he got put on the canvas. So this guy had a stellar career, man. At the end of his career, had 2 fights with Danny Garcia, you know what I mean? Gave Danny Garcia, good fights, and even he fought Marcus Maidana at the elder age. I think it was an interim time, WBA, 140. I thought he won that fight. I thought he beat Marcus Maidana. You know what I mean? So, Eric Morales was a great fighter. You know what I mean? He beat fellas like Paulie Ayala. You know what I mean? I was very happy. Marco Antonio Barrera got Paulie Ayala too on his resume. Paulie Gift Ayala, you know what I mean? You check it. So Eric Morales, El Terrible, man, this guy gave us great fights, you know what I mean? This guy's definitely a Mexican legend. One of my favorites ever. I didn't get to see him fight fellas like Juan Manuel Marquez, you know what I mean? Matter of fact, I'm going to pose a question for anybody listening in the comment section. Let me know who you would think in their prime for prime, who would win, Eric Morales versus Juan Manuel Marquez. Let me know in the comment section, you know what I mean? This guy beat fellas like even Wayne McCullough, guys that fought Prince Nassim, you know what I mean? So this guy definitely put in his work, and he's well deservedly so, you know what I mean? He had a little controversy with some clenbuterol when he fought Danny Garcia. You know what I mean? Tested positive for a banned substance. But besides that, his career stellar, you know what I mean? That first fight with Pacquiao, that's a fight I always go back to watch. That was actually the blueprint on how to beat Pacquiao. He can be outboxed, you know what I mean? You check it. So, congratulations to Eric Morales. You check it. And Winky Wright is also in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Eric, I'm sorry, what's his name? Sorry, Eric Morales. I'm sorry, Winky Wright's also in the mix. You know what I mean? Winky Wright was a great fighter. One of the best fighters ever, to be honest, at 154. You know what I mean? Long time champion at 154. You know, I remember when he had fights with when he fought everybody. He had a controversial loss to what's his name? What's that guy, fucking Oxnard guy? Fernando Vargas, you know what I mean? And, you know, Fernando Vargas lost that fight. I don't care what nobody says, man. Winky Wright beat him, you know? You know what I mean? He had a controversial loss again to fellas like, excuse me, what's the guy? South African dude, man. Sorry, man. I'm just waking up, man. I'm on my vacation, you heard? You know what I mean? Them fellas, Winky Wright beat fellas like, he lost to Simon Brown, controversial decision over there in South Africa, you know what I mean? I thought he beat Simon Brown by 1 point. You know, it could have gone either way, you know what I mean? But it was a very close fight. I'm not going to call it a robbery, but the way the judges handled it and called the fight a draw, then Winky Wright's in the locker room, then they come and say, oh, they changed the decision, and they gave it to Harry Simon. I was upset when I seen that, man. That was wrong, man. That was injustice, and I loved Harry Simon. He was a very good fighter from Namibia, you know what I mean? First champion out of Namibia, you know what I mean? I used to champion him hard body, you know? I thought fellas like B-Hop ducked him, you know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion. At 160 and even at 175, the man was knocking on his door, Harry Simon, but B-Hop ain't fight them fellas. But Winky Wright fought B-Hop in a close fight. You know, some people had even Winky Wright winning that fight. You know, there was a clash of heads. You know, a lot of blood pouring from Winky Wright, but he lost that fight. You know, he outboxed and outpointed the man Felix Trinidad. You know what I mean? He became undisputed when he beat Shane Mosley twice. You know what I mean? He had that IBF strap, and Shane Mosley had a WBC and WBA that he beat off of you know what I mean? When he beat, what's his name, De La Hoya, you check it. So, you know, this guy, Winky Wright, you know what I mean? I remember his first world title fight against Julio Cesar Vasquez, you know, an Argentinian dude who dropped this guy silly, who dropped Winky Wright all over the canvas, you know what I mean? He dropped the man about like 12, I would say 12 times, excuse me, about like 7 times, you know what I mean? But it was still a close fight because every round, besides the rounds that Winky Wright got dropped, Winky Wright won, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, against Julio Cesar Vasquez. So, you know, I thought that was his first world title shot. Then he had a trilogy with Bronco McCurt, you know, a guy that he beat for an IBF strap. You know what I mean? And he gave him numerous other chances to try to get it back, but he couldn't. You know, he beat the man, Winky Wright beat Ike Corte, you know what I mean? Who else did he have good fights with? You know, at the end of his career, he did fight younger dudes like Paul Williams and Peter Kid Chocolate Quillen, you know what I mean? But Winky Wright definitely is one of the best 154 pounders I've ever seen, you know what I mean? This guy had that tight defense, you know, kept his elbows tucked, you know what I mean? Kept that high guard. You couldn't hit him in the body, you couldn't hit him in the face. What the hell else you gonna do with him? You know, that's a great strategy. He was a very good defensive fighter. I rated Winky Wright, you know. Man was born in DC, man, but you know, he's definitely a St. Petersburg, Florida guy, you know what I mean? You know, we really can't claim him from DC, although he was born there. Winky Wright is definitely a Floridian, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad he's going to the Hall of Fame, you know what I mean? And, you know, I think it's well-deservedly so. You check it, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get into the Hall of Fame. And they need to be broadcasting these Hall of Fame events, you know what I mean? I don't think they give us what we really want to see as boxing fans. You check it as far as coverage, like how they do Hall of Fames for the NFL. Like, we'd like to see the speeches, you know. Sometimes we might catch them here on YouTube, but lately, these last couple of years, I haven't really been seeing any, any really, coverage of Hall of Fame speeches, you know, the Hall of Fame weekend period out there in Canastota, New York. You know what I mean? I think as boxing fans, we definitely deserve that kind of coverage and footage so, you know, we can understand, you know, how these fighters paid their dues to get into the Hall of Fame, you know what I mean? You check it, you know, going back to Eric Morales, you know, Eric Morales was a very, very underrated defensive fighter and boxer, you know what I mean? You know, fellas just think the guy was a puncher and just a guy who, It's an all-out Mexican style. Just want to fight. You know what I mean? The guy is, I think the man was from Tijuana. You know what I mean? And grew up with his pops above. He lived above a boxing gym. So this guy was a fighter by nature, but the man definitely had great boxing IQ, which was very underrated about the man. What's his name? Eric Morales. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, man, some of them fights with Marco Antonio Barrera were controversial, especially the third one. You know what I mean? I thought that I think it was a majority decision. That was a fight I definitely had the man. What's his name? I had Morales winning. He had unfortunate losses to Zahir Rahim. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, man. When you fight the best, eventually you're gonna take a L because the best. You're fighting the best. You know what I mean? You can't win every single fight when you fight the best. You check it, and the guy that proved that, is fellas like, Winky Wright. You know what I mean? Winky Wright was, like I said, a very good fighter. Oh yeah, matter of fact, speaking of Winky Wright, man, that man should have been a unified middleweight champion too, in my opinion. Because I had him beating the man. What's that guy's name? Jermaine Taylor. You know what I mean? I thought he got robbed in that fight, So, Winky Wright has, at least 3 or 4 of his losses on his resume are controversial. Hence the reason why I say, he's one of the best 154-pounders I've ever seen, you know what I mean? And Winky Wright, in my opinion, he probably beats all these 154-pounders right now in boxing. Only guy that probably would give him problems would probably be Lara, you know what I mean? I think he beats Charlo. I think he beats Saddam Ali, who's now the WBO champ. Who else is over there? Jarrett Hurd, definitely, man. I think, and I like Jarrett Hurd, but I think he definitely beats him. So the last and final guy making the Hall of Fame on the modern day boxers is Vitali Klitschko, Dr. Steelhammer. I said Dr. Steelhammer, Dr. Iron Fist, you know what I mean? This guy was a 3-time world champion at heavyweight, a guy who used to always clean up his little brother's messes, you know what I mean? He came back to beat, I think his first world title was a WBA title. He beat Herbie Hyde for. He knocked him out in like 2 rounds. WBO, then he lost to Chris Bird, you know what I mean? He lost to Chris Bird. He actually quit on the stool. In a fight that he was winning, in my opinion, you know what I mean? But he tore his rotator cuff on his shoulder, and he got a lot of ridicule as being a quitter when people suggested that he quit in that fight, you know what I mean? But then the man worked his way back up, Lennox Lewis was supposed to fight the Canadian Kirk Johnson. As a mandatory, Kirk Johnson got injured. Hey, this guy Vitali Klitschko stepped in on short notice to fight Lennox Lewis in a great classic fight. You know what I'm saying? Got his eyes tore up, you know what I mean? And you check it, the man, he gave he gave Lennox Lewis a tough fight, you know what I mean? One of Lennox Lewis's most memorable fights, in my opinion, you know what I mean? And got to credit Dr. Iron Fist Vitali Klitschko for making that fight happen too, you know what I mean? And challenging the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world at the time, Lennox Lewis, you know what I mean? Then he eventually beat up Kirk Johnson too. You know what I'm saying? He beat up the mandatory. Kirk Johnson, who was Lennox Lewis mandatory. Vitali beat him up. He came back and beat up Corey Saunders for vacant WBC title, and the ring title was on the line too, Ring Magazine title. So now he's a 2-time world champion. I mean, the man had a couple defenses. I think he beat Danny Williams, and he retired for like 3-4 years. Then he came back and he beat Samuel Peter, you know what I mean? A guy that his little brother also had problems with too, you know what I mean? So, this guy was definitely a big brother, he was his brother's keeper, you know what I mean? That's probably why he's in the Hall of Fame. You check it, because this guy was his brother's keeper. Because to be honest, man, the names on his resume are not Hall of Fame worthy. I'm sorry, man. They're not the kind of fighters that, let alone that he, even if he had lost to it, I mean, he lost to Lennox Lewis, but the kind of fighters that he beat are not Hall of Fame worthy, in my opinion. Unlike a guy like Eric Morales, that's sure shot Hall of Famer, and Winky Wright, you know what I mean? But hey, Vitali Klitschko's a 3-time world champion at heavyweight, you know what I mean? And Fought fellas like Chris Arreola, Thomas Adamak, Manuel Char, Derek Chisora. I'm not gonna. These are not world beaters, but it is what it is. Congratulations to all three of these guys. You know what I mean, Dr. Stillhammer, Eric Morales, Winky Wright. You know what I mean, and I'm also Steve Albert, former guy on Showtime, used to call fights for. You know what I mean, on Showtime. With Freddie Pacheco. He's getting into the Hall of Fame, and so is Jim Gray. You know Jim Gray, Showtime's post-fight interview guy. You know what I mean? He's going into the Hall of Fame too. So congratulations to the modern day boxers getting up in there. Vitali, Klitshko, Morales, and Winky Wright. And I think they all deserve to get in there. But Vitali Klitschko, man, hey man, some might question. You know what I mean? Some might question if he's definitely a Hall of Famer. B Marsh Boxing, leave your thoughts and comments, and I'm gone. Peace.